All right, I'm a little embarrassed to tell you this, but I got to tell you the whole truth. The balance sheet is not perfect. There are some limitations. So I better tell you what those are. Better that you hear from me than from somebody else. First, when you look at a balance sheet, most of the numbers that you see are not market values, they're costs. You say, well, what's the big deal? Well, it can be a huge deal. Let's say you've got a company that has some land that it bought 50 years ago for $5,000. All right. And the land now, 50 years later, is worth $2 million. Well, what's going to be reported on the balance sheet? The amount reported on the balance sheet is the original cost, the $5,000 50 years ago, not the current market value. This often misleads people because when they look at the balance sheet, they trust the balance sheet, they love the balance sheet, they're looking at it, they have to remind themselves, this is not the current values, these are the costs. If I want to know the current value of all the assets, I need to do some other investigations. That's outside the financial accounting process. So that's the first limitation. So I'm embarrassed about that. Second, probably worse, some very valuable economic assets are not reported at all in the balance sheet, especially intangible assets. Here you see a segment of the balance sheet of Apple. What are the most important economic assets of Apple? Think about this. Well, first, the logo itself, the name. Think how much would you have to pay to buy the worldwide rights to use that name Apple? It would be tens of billions of dollars. Same thing with the logo. And even more, an intangible asset are the relationships that Apple has with all of its customers around the world. If you're an Apple user, you are loyal. And if they come out with a new product, you're going to buy the thing. That's valuable for a company to have, an existing base of loyal users. That's an asset that if Apple wanted to sell its customer list, they could do that, again, for tens of billions of dollars. How much are those crucial economic assets, the logo, the name, those relationships, how much are they recorded at in the balance sheet? Zero. Because Apple never had to pay to buy those. Apple never had to pay anybody else to buy its name. It just developed that name. It didn't have to pay anybody else to buy its logo. It created the value of that logo. It didn't have to buy its relationships with customers. It's created those relationships itself. So the intangible assets that a company grows itself, creates itself organically, homegrown intangibles, I call them, are recorded at zero on a balance sheet. And for many companies, these assets are the most important ones they've got. The name Apple, the name Microsoft, the name IBM, the name McDonald's or Coca-Cola, all of those names are worth tens of billions of dollars, and yet they're all recorded at zero on the balance sheets of the respective companies. So accounting doesn't account for intangible assets very well at all. I'm ashamed. The combination of these two things means this. The value of a company on its books, the book value, we can say, is often not equal to the market value of a company. Well, let's use Apple here. Apple's total assets are listed there at $176 billion, which is a lot. And that's September 29, 2012. But I actually went out to do some investigation. If I had wanted to buy the company Apple on that date, September 29, 2012, how much would I have had to pay to buy it? The market capitalization of the company, the value of all the individual shares of stock around the world, was about $500 billion. Clearly, this balance sheet isn't capturing all of the value of Apple. People in the market are willing to pay $500 billion for this company, and yet we've only got reported assets of $176 billion. Most of the difference is because Apple has these huge, valuable, economic, intangible assets that are recorded at zero on the balance sheet. Those are limitations of the balance sheet. Now you know the truth. The balance sheet's great. I love it. You love it, but it's not perfect.